Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How's everybody doing? Welcome back. MashaAllah, so good to see everybody here today. So, MashaAllah, I am really amazed at how far we're coming in this class. Y'all have been an amazing audience, and you guys are so engaged and really focusing and working hard and being consistent, coming back every single day. MashaAllah, may Allah bless all of you and really benefit you from any knowledge that comes from here, inshallah. So it's very humbling to see such a great audience, mashallah, and I'm really so privileged and honored to be part of this with all of you. It's like a journey for all of us, right? Because, it's like all of us are on this journey together, right? Living day to day, doing what we need to do during the day, getting our needs met, and being responsible for our duties, but yet still trying to make that time for Allah, trying to learn about the Blessed Prophet so that we can fulfill part of our purpose on this earth, so that we are part of that group of people who we hope that Allah blesses. So that is really, I think that all of you are coming from such a place of sincerity, really. And I cannot imagine the reward and the blessings coming from Allah to all of you. And really, this is such a privilege to be here in this group. So today, inshallah, we're going to move on to year number 13. So those of you that have this book, we are going to year number 14, on caravan raids. Earlier, I sent out like a late Medina chart. So I just can't believe that we're on this part of the chart already. So you guys are past like the first half of the circle. We should have like an online party or something. So we're now in the second half of the circle, that third quadrant, which is year 14, the early Medina. So that's huge. So alhamdulillah, let's go to page 193, inshallah. And it says that several years after leaving Mecca, the Prophet begins dispatching several teams of emigrants to intercept Qurayshi caravans. So at the beginning of this section, it's going to be talking about these raids, these caravan raids. And honestly, I think there's a bit of a cultural step that we have to take in understanding that this is quite a different environment from what we are used to. There's different rules of the game. There's different ways that people did things. Obviously, the situation of the world and technology and mobilization and moving around, it was all different, right? I mean, now we're used to, cars, airplanes, highways, technology, right? Getting information in the ways that we're used to, but back then it's a different time and place, and it takes a little bit of getting used to put our mind where they were and to kind of reframe what was going on. So back then, it's a time of, first of all, they were living in Arabia. It's a desert. There was camels, there was caravans, there was no electricity, there was no internet, right? They had different rules of the game, and things were, their standards of normality were different, their rules of warfare were different. So keep that in mind, as we are getting some of this information inside of us, we also have to keep in mind that, they had a little bit of another way of doing things, right? So, so basically we have to understand in the first place that the Muslims really lost a lot. When we go into talking about these raids that we're going to talk about, the Muslims, many of them had been really abused and kicked out of their homes, right? They had lost lives, they were tortured, they were killed, so they were already in this position of having to be in the defense. And so sometimes when we learn about what happens, we have to kind of keep that in mind, and that's just something that helped me as I was learning about this myself. So here, we're in the midst of all of these, interactions going on, and so here we have the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he's in Medina now, and there's these things called caravans, right? These caravans had a wealth of assets, and they were sent to do trading in different locations. And so those caravans meant a lot because it was people's wealth, it was people's investments, things that they had worked hard for a long time, and they had a lot of hope in those caravans, right? So if you had invested in a caravan, you'd probably worked for God knows how long for that stuff that was in the caravan, and you're really hoping that you were going to benefit from that caravan when it comes back, right? And you were just waiting on that caravan. It meant a lot to you because maybe when it came back, you're probably, gonna hopefully get some income from that, and that might be what you survive with for God knows how long. And so there's just a lot that is tied up with that, and there's also a sense of ownership and pride, and there's a lot that goes into that, not just economically and physically, but also like sentimentally, right? And so, there's a lot that goes into, if there's a caravan which involves like certain tribes, sometimes a political move would be to attack that caravan or to raid the caravan. Perhaps it might be in retaliation for them attacking your entire clan, or perhaps, maybe you were kicked out of your homes. And so one way to defend yourself or to stop them from doing more, you might go and, intercept their caravan or something of that sort. These are all different political steps that could be taken, okay? So here what happens is the prophet dispatches teams of immigrants to intercept a Qurayshi caravan. And by the fourth expedition, personally, the prophet leads 70 men out of Medina, leaving Sa'd ibn Ubadah in charge during his absence. And, he is there, he's trying to intercept these caravans, and he fails to capture the caravan of Umay bin Khalaf, okay? And, there's these series of raids that start. The prophet initially focuses on Meccan's northbound caravans. We're on page 194 now. Several months after the first raid, he decides to send a warning to the Quraysh that nothing is off limits. He learns of a Makhzumi caravan returning from Yemen and sends an 8-person reconnaissance team to verify the news. The group, led by his cousin Abdullah bin Jahash, is instructed to proceed to the road that connects Mecca to Ta'if and watch for a returning Qurayshi caravan. So this is what happens, is they're told only to watch for the caravan, but then they end up doing something else. It says that though the men are instructed to simply observe the caravan, they spot a rare opportunity to attack the caravan near the village of Nakhla. Okay, and right here is a map of that area. So you can see Mecca, you can see Nakhla. And by the way, I'm really excited about this thing that I just ordered yesterday, because I was thinking how sometimes I want to show you some maps and some different things. I was thinking about some future classes. So I got something called a document camera, so that, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like this table lamp, except it's a camera. So that way I can show you some of these things from the books, so that I don't have to try to show it to you the way I do normally. It might be better. So anyways, here, so this is what happens. They see a caravan and they spot a rare opportunity to attack the caravan. And this is near the village of Nakhla. It is the last day of the sacred month of Rajab, when during this month, it is actually normally prohibited to fight. And that's just one of their rules. And you know how I mentioned there's certain warfare rules that everybody respected, and even the polytheists and the pagans respected those rules. So there were certain months that you're not supposed to be fighting, but this was during one of those months, the sacred month of Rajab. But then they got, they saw this opportunity, and then they ended up, attacking that caravan. And they were thinking about this Revelations from Surah Hajj, which says, those who have been attacked now have permission to fight back because they've been wronged, and God can provide them with powerful aid. They're the ones who have been driven from their homes against all right, and for no other reason than that they've said, our Lord is God. If God didn't use one set of people to check the ambitions of another, then there would have been many monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques which are used to commemorate the name of God abundantly, pulled down and ruined. God will definitely help those who help him, for God is strong and powerful. So using that, they allowed themselves to do that. And this attack, because it's during the sacred months, it's kind of unexpected to the Meccans. And 2 Meccans are taken captive. One man is killed, while another one, Nawfal ibn Abdullah, escapes to Medina. But when the immigrants return from Nakhla, the prophet condemns their decision to attack during the sacred month, and he refuses to accept their spoils. So the prophet did not want to accept any of those spoils of war. And for those of you who don't know some of these words, there's a word called spoils. Sometimes it's called booty, which is B-O-O-T-Y. That means that whenever there's like some kind of a war or an attack, there's a lot of material things and possessions that might be laying around, and the defeated people, will lose those, and the victorious people will take those, and that is the spoils of war, okay? So the prophet refuses to accept those spoils. And then we have some verses from Surah Al-Baqarah come down, and it says, when they ask you about fighting in the sacred month, tell them fighting in it is indeed wrong, but an even greater wrong in the sight of God is to discourage people from his way, and to reject him, and to keep people out of his sacred mosque, even driving out those who are already living there. Oppression is worse than death, and the oppressors who will never tolerate your existence will always seek to wage war against you until they make you renounce your faith, if at all possible. Okay? And then we go on to the next page, 196, which talks about the changing of the direction of the Qibla. So during the Meccan period, the Prophet had faced Jerusalem whenever he led his followers in prayer. But after the Hijrah, he really longed in his heart for Mecca, because that is the place that was erected by Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam several thousand years ago. So Surah Al-Baqarah pacifies his heart, instructing him to change the direction of prayer from Jerusalem to Mecca. Okay, so in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 144, Allah says, we've seen you look to the sky for guidance, so now we'll turn you towards a more pleasing direction. Now you can turn your face towards the sacred mosque in Mecca. So turn your face towards it, wherever you happen to be. The followers of earlier revelation can see the proper reasoning in this from their Lord, and God is not aware of anything that they're doing. So here, the Qibla changes from Jerusalem to Mecca. We're still in year 14. We now start year 15, page 198. Abu Sufyan was a man who had a very prominent and rich caravan. So about 2 years after the Hijrah, the Prophet learns about this big caravan of Abu Sufyan's returning from Syria, and his name is Abu Sufyan ibn al-Harb. So the Prophet immediately sends Talha ibn Ubaydullah and Sa'id ibn Zayd to the coastal town of Hawra, just west of Medina, to gather more information, because the Prophet was interested in intercepting this caravan. Now, the Prophet decides, even before these two people come back, the Prophet decides to go ahead and mobilize the companions before Talha and Sa'id return. He also left a very sick daughter, Ruqayya, his own daughter, Ruqayya, he left behind, and he heads towards the southwest of Medina to intercept that caravan. So some of this news leaks out of Medina, and Abu Sufyan learns about this, and he urgently sends a messenger to Mecca requesting immediate backup. All but 4 emigrants march to the city of Badr, the coastal city of Badr. Uthman ibn Affan stays behind to take care of Ruqayya, because that's his wife. Talha and Sa'id return from their scouting mission, but the people have already left. They've already left for the expedition. And all in all, this expedition consists of 306 men, which are 74 immigrants, and 232 helpers, 70 camels, and 3 horses. I'm still on page 198. And so one of the Qurayshi traditions is to award a white banner. So during times of war, and so the Prophet awards this white banner to Mus'ab ibn Umair, whose clan of Abu Dhar had an ancestral right to carry the banner of Quraysh during times of war. We go to the next page. We're on page 199. And every single clan of Quraysh marches out to fight the Prophet, except for Umar's clan of Adi. Abu Lahab also stays behind, sending a hired soldier to fight in his place. All the Meccans are over 1,000 soldiers, including 100 horsemen and 600 men in chainmail. So they outnumber the Prophet's group a lot. And here we have a passage from Surah Anfal. And one of the Kahoot questions today is that we have so many passages from Surah Anfal coming down throughout this time period. So that probably most frequently we have revelations from Surah Al-Anfal. So here is what it says in Surah Al-Anfal, verse 48. Remember how Satan made their actions seem good to them, and how he told them, no people can ever beat you today as long as I'm near you. However, when the two forces came in full view of each other, Satan turned on his heels and said, I'm free of you. I see what you don't see. I'm afraid of God, and God is harsh in punishment. Okay, I want to show you another little map of Yathrib, Badr, and Makkah. And it just shows where Badr is. It's kind of in the middle of Yathrib and Makkah. Moving on to the next page, 200. We're on 15.2. It's called The Decision to Fight. And, Abu Sufyan redirects his caravan towards the coast to avoid the Prophet's men. With the Meccan army fast approaching, the Prophet consults with the immigrants. They all left Medina expecting a simple caravan raid, but now they're outnumbered 3-1. Some hearts began to waver. So we have some more passages coming from Surah Anfal where it says, these different grades in status in God's sight are evidenced by the fact that when your Lord had ordered you to leave your home, Muhammad, to make a stand at the well of Badr for a true purpose, a segment of the believers didn't like it and they argued with you about it, even after the reality of the situation was made evidently clear. Indeed, they made it seem as if they were being marched off to their own deaths right before their own eyes. Also, Abu Bakr and Omar argue that it's time to confront the Meccan army. And after the immigrants have spoken to the Prophet looks for support from the helpers. And then there's some passages of them going back and forth. For example, middle of page, or kind of top middle on page 201, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh eloquently responds, O Prophet of Allah, we believe in you and we bear witness to you what you have granted to us, and we declare in clear terms that what you have brought is the truth. We give you our firm pledge of obedience and sacrifice. We will obey you most willingly in whatever you command us, and by Allah, who has sent you with the truth. If you were to ask us to throw ourselves into the sea, we will do that most readily, and not a man of us will stay behind. We do not deny the idea of an encounter with the enemy. We are experienced in war, and we are trustworthy in combat. We hope that Allah will show you through our hands that those deeds of bravery which will please your eyes, kindly lead us in the battlefield in the name of Allah. That's just an example of one of the responses of those who are loyal to the Prophet. If you move down underneath the tan box, it says, with more than 1,000 soldiers protecting his caravan from the Prophet's men, Abu Sufyan tells the Quraysh leaders they can now safely return to Mecca. Abu Jahl, on the other hand, has greater ambitions, and he wants the army to march towards Badr and destroy the Prophet's renegade. While Akhnas ibn Shariq persuades his entire clan of Zuhra to return to Mecca, several of the Prophet's own clansmen from Hashim prepare for battle. The Prophet's opponents include his uncle Abbas and first cousins Aqil ibn Abi Talib and Abu Sufyan and Nofal ibn Harith. And then we have a man named Hobab ibn Mundir. So the Prophet's men arrive at Badr and prepare to halt at the first well, and then somebody named Hobab ibn Mundir asks the Prophet, he kind of like discusses this decision with the Prophet and explains it'll be a tactical mistake to not take control of all the wells. He persuades him to advance the army to the furthest well. And so in Surah Anfal, this is what is said. It says, remember how we covered you in a state of jest right before the eve of the battle to calm your anxiety as a gift from himself. And he made water fall from the sky to cleanse you and remove the taint of Satan, to strengthen your hearts and make your firm stance. So then, as described in Surah Anfal, the companions have a restful night before the battle. And then we go to 15.3, the Battle of Badr. It says that there's a hesitation among the men in Mecca, in the Meccan army, about fighting their own relatives from Quraysh, but Abu Jahl rouses their feelings of vengeance and urges them forward with this prayer. Abu Jahl says, our Lord, whichever of the two parties was less kind to his relatives and brought us what we do not know, then destroy him tomorrow. And then Surah Anfal responds to Abu Jahl's dua, and he says, all of you faithless Meccans, if you had ever looked for a definitive resolution in your struggles with the believers, then there you have it. The resolution has come to you. So if you would just stop opposing God, it would be better for you. If you ever return to fight against the believers, then we'll bring about the same result. The forces under your command are of no use to you, no matter how numerous they become, for God is with the believers and he helps to achieve victory. And that is from Surah Anfal, verse 19. We go, it's Friday on the next page, 203. It is Friday during the month of Ramadan, and the fighting is just moments away. The Prophet turns to his closest companion and offers a few words of gentle encouragement. He says to Abu Bakr, be of good cheer, Abu Bakr, the help of God hath come to thee. Here is Jibreel, and his hand is on the rein of a horse which is leading, and he is armed for war. So then the Meccans send out the most prominent men of Abd Shams for the opening duels. And soon enough, basically it just gives a little bit more details with several names, which are going to be hard to retain by memory. But basically, all three companions defeat their Meccan opponents, so it just goes into detail about that. Here's a really nice figure 15.15b or 15 point, let me see. Yeah, if you just look at that, it's just like a description of some of the war interactions that take place during Badr. And it's a face-off at Badr, a Quraysh affair, so it's 15b is what it says. If we go to the next page, 204, we're trying to get to page 220 today, among the other things that we have. So it says, the opening duels are soon followed by a shower of Meccan arrows, one which kills a young Khazraji named Haritha bin Ibn Suraqa, who was drinking one of the Badr wells. The boy's death marks the beginning of the battle, and the Prophet gives the order to charge. It says, "O thou whom God has made victorious, slay." So this is the battle cry of the Prophet. And then as the battle intensifies, the Prophet remains standing with his arms outstretched in prayer, saying, "O Allah, should this group of Muslims be defeated today, you will no longer be worshipped." Then we have a passage, once again from Surah Anfal, the bottom of the page, where Allah answers his call. It says, remember how, this is from verse 9, remember how you had fervently asked for help of your Lord at the battle of Badr, and he answered you saying, I will help you with a regiment of 1,000 angels. And then it gives us verse 12. Muhammad, remember also that your Lord inspired the angels to bring a message of hope to your heart that said, I'm with you, so steady the believers. I'm going to put terror into the hearts of the faithless, so strike at their necks with your weapons and lap off their fingertips as they brandish their swords against you. Then we have one passage from Surah Anfal, verse 17. It says, it wasn't you who struck them down at the battle of Badr, but it was God. When you threw a symbolic handful of pebbles at the idol worshippers as the battle commenced, Muhammad, it wasn't something you did, but God who did it. So he could test the believers with a fine test from himself, for God hears and knows all things. We go on to page 205 to find out that the Muslims won. It says that by the end of the battle, only 14 of the Prophet's men are slain, including Umar ibn Abi Waqqas, the 15-year-old brother of Sa'ad, who begged to join the army. But on the other hand, the Meccans suffered a greater loss. They had 50 dead and another 50 taken captive. And part of this, it kind of describes that actually the pagans were many men that were past their prime, whereas the Muslim immigrants were mostly younger in the height of their physical power, so on and so forth. And 15.4, the captives and the spoils of war. So there's some different things to see here. It says, having won the battle, the companions are at a loss over what to do with so many captives, because they had a lot of captives, right? So Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh and Umar ibn al-Khattab say the prisoners should be killed. The Prophet and Abu Bakr elect to spare them in hope that they might eventually embrace Islam. Okay, so here, once again, Surah Anfal, verse 67, it says, it is not right for the Prophet to start taking prisoners of war wholesale in order to collect their ransoms when he hasn't even subdued the land. You believers want the temporary goods of this lower world, while God wants to give you the rewards of the next life, and God is powerful and wise. Let's look at the next page. And also verse 70, we see on the next page, it says, O Prophet, say to the captives that you're holding, if God finds any good in your heart, he'll give you something better than what's been taken from you, and he will forgive you, for God is forgiving and merciful. Also, Bilal finds his, we know who Bilal is. Bilal finds his former abusive master Umayy ibn Khalaf taken captive, and he insists that he be killed. And another point on page 206, it says, when the companions search in the battlefield for their fallen brothers, Abu Hudayfa sees the body of his father, Utbah ibn Rabia, who died before embracing Islam. So he's very sad about that. And the Prophet spots Abu Hudayfa, and he quickly comforts the grieving son. Okay? And more from Surah Anfal here that you can read. Then 15.5 on page 207, the triumphant return to Medina. And so there was a victorious there was a victorious reception in Medina. There was a festive celebration. Also, the establishment of Shawwal Eid, or the festival of the fast breaking, directly after the victory. And so the Surah Anfal talks about that as well. It says, remember, this is verse 26, remember how you Muslims used to be such a small group in the early days of the Prophet's mission. Everyone in the land thought you were so weak. You were constantly afraid of people robbing or kidnapping you, but he found a place of refuge for you in Medina and gave you strength with his help. He also provided wholesale resources for you as well, so you could be thankful. But then a sad thing happens on page 208, which is also on the Kahoot, which is that the Prophet's daughter Ruqayya, who, remember that she was sick when he left her during Badr, she dies. And she was only the age of 22. So this happy mood is quickly tempered by the news of Ruqayya's death. And she had died during the Prophet's absence and already have been buried by her husband. And so now we have 15.6, the Meccan response to the defeat. So Abu Sufyan, the Prophet's cousin Abu Sufyan ibn Harith tells Abu Lahab about the shocking defeat. And so different people react differently. There's some people who overheard this, and so Abu Rafi rejoices and is subsequently beaten by Abu Lahab. Okay, and then Fadl, these are just people in the area. Fadl rushes to her servant's rescue, and in a fit of rage smashes a tent post upon his attacker's head, and Abu Lahab's condition deteriorates and he dies a few days later. So Abu Lahab dies. Okay, and then after the deaths of Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, Abu Sufyan emerges as the only viable leader of Quraysh. So we know that Abu Lahab has died, now Abu Sufyan is going to be the leader. It says, fueled by the humiliation of Badr, the Quraysh redouble their efforts to raise an army large enough to crush the emerging threat from Medina. So we learn about Hind, who is the wife of Abu Sufyan. She has lost her uncle, her father, and her brother in this battle. And so she swears to eat the raw liver of Hamza, the Prophet's uncle, who had killed her father and uncle when the Quraysh take revenge. So she is very, very mad about that. That's a famous scene that she wants to eat the raw liver of Hamza. There's a really nice chart, 15C, which are the losses at Badr. And this shows the Makkans who were killed, the Muslims who were killed, as well as those who were taken prisoner. So it's a nice little illustration where, once again, it talks about the 50 and 50 of the Makkans, whereas it's only 14 of the Muslims. We turn to page 210. Here we learn about many of the captives that were taken, the fate of the notable Meccan captives. So what is interesting is that these Meccan captives who came to Medina could be ransomed by their relatives according to what their families could afford. But the Prophet gave an alternative to those captives who do not have the resources to buy their freedom. He instructed them to teach 10 Medinan children how to read and write before returning to Mecca. That is a Kahoot question as well. So they had the option of being ransomed by their relatives or teaching children how to read and write before, in order to get released. So one example, so on this section, it's going to give like 4 or 5 examples of these captives that were released. So one example is Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. Even though, so this is the Prophet's uncle, he was very loyal to the Prophet during the Meccan period, but even him, the Prophet refuses to show leniency and demands that he pay his own ransom if he wants to return to Mecca. And what happened is that so there's something that happens a couple of times, which is that some of the Meccans will have these little secret conspiracies that they discuss somewhere privately, and a revelation will come to the Prophet and he knows about this. So then when that person hears that the Prophet knows about it, they give up and they accept Islam because they realize there's no way. Like if I tell Asma a secret and I know that nobody else is in this room except me and Asma, and then some other person comes and says, I know exactly what you said, this is what you said. Well, then you're just gonna be like, whoa, I think I have to believe you because nobody else would have known about that. So here what happens is the Prophet tells him about a secret conversation that Abbas had with his wife Fadl about dividing his wealth if he was killed at Badr. So then Abbas says, by him who sent thee with the truth, none knew about this except she and I. Now I know that you're a messenger of God. Another example, Walid ibn al-Walid, which is the son of the late chief of al-Makhzum, waits for his brothers Khalid and Hisham to pay for his release with their father's armor. And then when the three brothers together began their trip back to Mecca, Walid actually sneaks back to Medina to enter Islam. And then the companions were kind of confused, like, why would you do that? And he said he didn't want people to think that he entered Islam just so his family doesn't have to pay the ransom. So it's kind of like a different way he did that. But then after he converted, he went to Mecca to get some of his items, his personal items, and his family doesn't let him go back to Medina. They capture him. Another story is Jubair ibn Mut'im. He also comes to Medina to ransom several captives. And during his visit, he overhears the Prophet reciting from Surah Tur, and he feels an inclination towards Islam. And he returns home, and out of revenge for his uncle's death, he will instruct an Abyssinian slave to kill Hamza at the Battle of Uhud. Another example is the Prophet's son-in-law, Abul As ibn al-Rabi. He paid for his ransom. So basically, he was not a Muslim. And the Prophet's daughter Zainab was married to him. And Zainab sends Khadija radiallahu anh, who's already passed away, she sends her mother's jewelry to Medina. So when the Prophet sees this jewelry of Khadija, his face turns pale, right? Because, he loved Khadija so much. He agrees to release his son-in-law on the condition that Zainab, his daughter, gets to come to Medina, because in a revelation, it was made clear that she cannot be married to a pagan. So then Abu Sufyan hears about the Prophet's offer. He permits Zainab to leave with Abu As, Kinana ibn Arabi, but only at night when no one can see. And then a couple of more stories. It says Ubay ibn Khalaf, brother of Umayyah, also comes to Medina to ransom his son. And before leaving, he actually taunts the Prophet. He says, "Oh Muhammad, I have a horse named Aoud that I feed every day on many measures of corn. I shall slay thee when I'm riding him." So he actually gives like this very ugly threat. And Safwan ibn Umayy, we're at the top of 211, he persuades his cousin Umair ibn Wahab to assassinate the Prophet as well. And so this is what happened. They actually go to the Prophet. And when the Prophet recounts to Umair his exact conversation with Safwan about their plot, about their assassination plot, they give up. They said, Umair says, so it says, "We called thee a liar when thou didst bring us tidings from heaven, but praise be to God who hath guided me to Islam." So basically, the Prophet tells them, I know, about the conversation you had amongst yourself to assassinate me. And then when they hear about this, this convinces them that he is a prophet. Okay, moving on to 15.8. This is Al-Khudr invasion. So this one, basically a few days after Badr, the Prophet receives information about a hostile Bedouin tribe of Sulaim and Ghatafan that were planning to raid Medina. So instead, the Prophet takes a preemptive strike to neutralize the attack. And by the time the expedition arrives at the Bedouin oasis of Al-Khudr, the hostile tribe scattered. And so without even needing to fight, the Prophet collected 500 camels abandoned by the enemy tribe. That's just a little story. And then 15.9, the expulsion of Bani Qaynuqa. While the settlements in Medina thrived on agriculture, Bani Qaynuqa, they were craftsmen and blacksmiths, and their abundance of arms and armor made them the most militarized Jewish colony on the oasis. So shortly after the Prophet's arrival in Medina, Qaynuqa signed a pact of allegiance with the Muslims. And after the victory of Badr, the Prophet reaches out to the Jewish clan to invite them to Islam, but they say no. They actually scoff at his offer, and they say, "Oh Muhammad, do not deceive yourself. If you merely fought a party of the Quraysh who were inexperienced at war, but if you fight us, then you're going to know that we are an entire people, and indeed you have not met up with anyone like us before." So they do not accept Islam. In fact, on the next page, 212, it just talks about the Jews and how hard-hearted they are. They did not consider the Prophet's covenant binding on them. And then there's many passages from Surah, here we have Surah Imran actually, and it says, despite the obvious betrayal, the Prophet ignores the threat. Surah Ali Imran addresses the challengers. So if you want to read that yourself, you can. I just want to make sure I make it on time. So next we have on page 213 a poet by the name of Ka'ab ibn Ashraf, a chief of the Jewish tribe of Nadir. He travels to Mecca and recites poetry about the Prophet and his companions and urges the Quraysh to avenge their humiliating defeat. So Abdullah ibn Salam, who is a rabbi who turned Muslim from Banu Qaynuqa, tells the Prophet about this plot against the Muslim community. And so the Prophet receives guidance from Surah Anfal. There's a long passage here from Surah Anfal, directing the Prophet. So it's verses 58 to 61. I'm going to let you read that on your own. Okay, and then, let's look on page 214. The growing hostility between Banu Qaynuqa and the Muslims mounts after a marketplace scuffle where a Muslim helper comes in defense of a woman who had been insulted by a Jewish merchant. The scene escalates and the helper kills the Jewish merchant, whose tribesmen then kill the Muslim. The companions suggest the Prophet arbitrate the matter, but the Qaynuqa refuse to abide by the terms of their pact and fortify themselves in garrison. So then Hamza and the Prophet quickly mobilize a brigade that surrounds this Jewish fortress. Qaynuqa's leaders look for support from their pre-existing alliance with Khazraj via Abdullah ibn Ubay and Ubadah ibn Sabit. Despite his own willingness to help them, Abdullah is unable to persuade Ubadah to break his pact with the Prophet. So here, Surah Anfal talks about the betrayal of Banu Qaynuqa. It says on verse 57, therefore, if you ever gain ascendancy over them on the battlefield, scatter them completely so that those who come after them will have a lesson to consider. So they are banished from Medina. Banu Qaynuqa is banished from Medina because they broke several terms of the pact. And they have to resettle in the oasis of Wadi al-Qura near the Syrian border. We're almost there, 5 more pages. It says 15.10, the barley invasion. Smoldering from the loss at Badr, Abu Sufyan promises not to take a bath until he gets revenge on the Muslims. That is an interesting one. 2 months after the Badr, he leads 200 men to Medina to fulfill his oath.
What's your cat's name?
Yeah, his name is Abu Sufyan. It's the same man, Abu Sufyan. He takes an oath not to take a bath until he gets revenge on the Muslims for Badr. So he, 2 months after Badr, leads 200 men to Medina to fulfill his oath. After obtaining assistance from Banu Nadir, the Meccan party raids on one of the Medina suburbs at night. They kill 2 Muslims and cut down several palm trees before fleeing back to their camp. The Prophet hears about this and he dispatches a party to capture Abu Sufyan, but it's too late because he already fled back to Mecca. Although the Muslims never catch Abu Sufyan, they recover the provisions and barley that the Meccans hastily jettisoned to lighten their load. So that's called the barley invasion. We now move on towards the end of this section, the death of Uthman ibn Mazum. So in the year after Badr, Umar's brother-in-law, Uthman ibn Mazum, passes away from natural causes. And he was a very religious man. In fact, the Prophet would have to bring him towards moderation because he's the one that the Prophet would say, hast thou not in me an example? Verily thine own eyes have rights over thee, thy body hath rights, and thy family have rights. So pray, sleep, and fast, and break the fast. So that is something that happened. Another little thing, a little story, 15.12, Abu Lubaba's tree. So another thing that happened after Badr is one of the companions, Abu Lubaba ibn Abdul Mundir, is falsely accused of taking a palm tree that belongs to an orphan, which is a big sin. You don't take something that belongs to an orphan. And so against the Prophet's advice, Abu Lubaba refuses to give his tree to the orphan as an act of charity. And the Prophet asks him again, telling him that if he gives him his tree, he's going to get a tree in Jannah. And Abu Lubaba refuses, but this man named Thabit ibn Dahdaha, he hears this offer and he gives his whole orchard for Abu Lubaba's one tree so that he can have the reward intended for Abu Lubaba. So that is a tiny little story there. 15.13, the household after Badr. At the age of 20, Fatima, radiallahu anha, the Prophet's daughter, is unmarried. Both Abu Bakr and Umar had asked to marry her, but the Prophet refused. Instead, the Prophet had his eye on Ali. And so he talked to Ali, who was at first hesitant because he really didn't have a lot of money, but then he consents to the union. And, the Prophet blesses that union. And they settle in a house, which is a lot further away from the masjid. So there was a man named Haritha ibn Nu'man, who was a distant relative of the Khazraji tribe, who donates his house so that they could be a little bit closer. Here's a Kahoot question. After the Hijrah, a lot of people were impoverished, so they had to live in the masjid. There was a lot of followers who basically were destitute. They lived in the masjid, and there was a stone platform that was put up for their use next to the Prophet's house. These people are known as Ahlus Sufa. Ahlus Sufa, they're the people of the bench. And they were devoting most of their time to studying and preserving the Prophet's revelations. Their daily needs are largely dependent on the generosity of others, mostly Fatima. So the Ahlus Sufa are people who would live in the masjid and they would learn about Islam. We're on the last page, 218. So 2 years after the Hijrah, I'll give you this story. So the work is very exhausting for Fatima and Ali. And so Ali asks Fatima to ask the Prophet for a servant. And so the Prophet is actually, he says that there's other people like the Ahlus Sufa who are more in need of help. So instead of offering material support, he teaches them how to invoke God's praise after each prayer, like Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, explaining that it is far more valuable than what they are seeking. So there you go. We have made it to the end of our section today. We have a couple of more things we want to do. I want to display to you some of the amazing work that some of the students have been doing, and then we have a short Kahoot game. So we're just going to try to do that very quickly. You guys have been really amazing, mashallah. So let me show you a couple of these things. So what we have here, and each time I will share my screen. Bear with me. So we have, this one is Shanzana from New York. So we have Shanzana. Let me share my screen here. This is Shanzana's work. She has made a very beautiful pie chart that goes all the way up to where we were today. So we have the private call, beautifully colored. We have the public call, and up until the Hijrah to Yathrib. And look, it's all got like all the numbers, the early Makkah, the late Makkah, the early Medina. It's labeled very, very well. So this is beautiful. It's inspiring and very good work. Very good work, Shanzana. That is excellent. Another one I want to show you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing the work, and thank you for sharing that. This one is Shyla. Shyla from New York joins us as well. Let me share my screen. Pleasure to have you, Shyla. Look at how beautiful this one is. And those are the beautiful color markers, ink pens. I don't even know what you call them nowadays. They're hybrids.
Yeah, those are calligraphy pens.
Calligraphy pens. Thank you so much, Shyla.
Yeah,
This looks
Yana is my sister.
Ah, mashallah. And look at how beautifully that's written in calligraphy. So it's not only colored so beautifully, Makkah, late Makkah, early Medina. It's also numbered. The colors are beautiful. And we have beautiful labeling as well from these calligraphy markers. Such a beautiful thing to see. Thank you so much for sharing and for being part of our class. I also want to share a couple of more. So let me see here. There we go. So here we have the beautiful work of Maliha Anjum. So I'm going to show you this work right here. Is this beautiful or what? Look at this, Maliha Anjum. So she has labeled all 4 quadrants: early Makkah, late Makkah, early Medina, and late Medina. And then we have beautiful rainbow colors. So I know on mine, I had tried to do rainbow colors, but I think I was off like a little bit. But this is perfectly rainbow colors. We have private call, public call, band years, everything. We have sadness, Isra and Miraj, Aqaba, and Hijrah. So this just makes me want to fully photographically remember this entire chart. You did a great, great job, mashallah, Maliha. And then what we have is one more I want to share with you, which is Maryam Anjum as well. So this is Maliha's sister, and they are awesome, awesome students, mashallah, very regular. Look at Maryam Anjum's. This is also rainbow colors, beautiful bold colors that are so hard to forget. We have early Makkah, late Makkah, everything is labeled all the way until our very last class. And so this is going to be very memorable. I really love this artwork, and it is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. You guys did a great job, mashallah. You guys did a great job. Keep sending them in, inshallah. Thank you for that. I'm gonna do a really cute Kahoot game. A really short Kahoot game is what I meant to say, a really short Kahoot game. So let me go to my Kahoot. So if everybody can please hop onto their Kahoot. Inshallah, I'm going to, this one just has maybe less than 10 questions, inshallah. All right, thank you so much for sending those in. That was really beautiful to see and very inspiring. So here we go. 162-3587, 162-3587. Have I shared my screen? Oh my goodness, I always forget. There we go. So we have 162-3587. And I believe that we have covered all the material today. Sorry, we went a little bit over time. That's funny. Okay. I hope you're able to remember all that information. But what's really nice is when you give kind of too much, when you learn too much information, you always remember the basic information, right? So I think you guys have done great on these Kahoots because you're listening so well. And then when you try to remember all that deep information, you'll definitely remember the basic stuff. It's kind of loud. Turn this down a little bit. Okay, we have 10 players. So, Bismillah, I'm gonna push, well, I think people are still joining, so let's keep joining. Yes. I think somebody's trying up. Okay, we're at 14. So there's another good news that I could give you more details tomorrow, but I have organized information for the next subject. I have organized information for the next subject that we're going to be looking at after we're done with this book. Because mashallah, we're going pretty fast on this book and we're going to be wrapped up in no time. So I actually have, and I will tell you what that is tomorrow, I think, inshallah. All right, let's begin.
No, Miss.
Oh, do we need to wait for anyone?
Yes, please.
All right, number one, who are the Ahlus Sufa? Who are the Ahlus Sufa? People who died in Badr, people who lived in the mosque and learned Islam, people who farmed the land, or none of these? Who are the Ahlus Sufa? Yes, it's people who lived in the mosque and learned Islam. Very, very good, mashallah. And our next question, number two, true or false? The Muslims won the Battle of Badr. Is that true or false? That is true. All of you got that right. The Muslims did win the Battle of Badr. Very, very good. I see some awesome names. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. Number three, which relative of the Prophet died during the Badr? Was it daughter Fatima, Ali, daughter Ruqayya, or none of these? Which relative of the Prophet Muhammad died during the Battle of Badr? The answer is Ruqayya. The answer is Ruqayya. Yes. Does someone have a question?
I drew you.
Okay, you drew me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. The next one. Number four, true or false? The Meccans taken as prisoners of war could either pay ransom to or teach 10 Muslims to read to be free. So you could either pay a ransom or teach 10 Muslims to read. Is that true or false in order to be freed as a prisoner? Yes, that is totally true. Yeah, I really like that option of teaching people how to read. I think that's kind of cool. Number five, the Prophet Muhammad would get revelations telling him about conspiracies against him. Is that true or false? That is true. So we know that the Prophet got these signs that were miracles of Allah. Sometimes that convinced people to become Muslim. Good job. I see Maliha, Fatima, Naveed, Maryam, and Jimmy. Let's go to the next one. Number six. One of the surahs which had many revelations throughout this time is which one? Anfal, Fatiha, Yasin, or none of these? Which surah had many revelations during this time period? And the answer is Anfal. Very, very good. MashaAllah. You guys are just a perfect game audience. MashaAllah. 6 out of 6. Maryam Anjam. MashaAllah. 6 out of 6. Fatima Mushtaha. Another 6 out of 6 is Maliha. MashaAllah. Maliha and Maryam, both sisters. We also have some runners up. Naveed, I'm very proud of you. And another runner up, though I didn't catch your name. Very, very quickly, let's get a full roll out here. We have, everybody did good. We got lots of 6 out of 6s. So that means we have Maliha, Fatima, Mariam, Naveed. We have, how do you say this? Fahah, I could be wrong, Fahah. We have Manha, who also got 6 out of 6. We have Shanze got 6 out of 6. And then we have Muhammad Al-Khatib and Jimmy, great job. Hania, excellent. We also have Sarah, Khadija, Aban, I'm so proud of you. Mariam Al-Dairi, who I wanted to show you a picture. Mariam actually brought me cake pops this weekend. And I was just then looking for something sweet to eat. And tomorrow I will show you a picture of Mariam and her cake pops that she brought me. We also have Shaila, Lana Kuser, and Asma. You guys did a great job. And I think Asma had some technical difficulties, and that is why the Kahoot wasn't like logging her answers. So I really appreciate this beautiful time that we shared together. May Allah accept from all of you. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. I also sent out the next piece of the pie timeline by email. It's also on the website. You can print that, inshallah, so we can start filling that out as we go along. I will be posting the students' work on the website as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Inshallah, we'll see you here tomorrow, same time, same place. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.